السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله، فقد فاز المتقون. قال الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم بعد أن أقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: للذين أحسنوا الحسنى وزيادة ولا يرهق وجوههم قتر ولا ذلة أولئك أصحاب الجنة هم فيها خالدون. قال في آية أخرى: تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير، الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله الكريم، ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين. Dear respected brothers and elders, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Allah has blessed us and given us the mercy to witness another Yawm al-Jum'ah. The day of Jum'ah is a blessing to us. It is our day of Eid on a weekly basis. It is a day for us to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ مِنْ يَوْمِ الْجُمْعَةِ فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَذَرُوا الْبَيْعَ. And when the call for prayer is made on the day of Jum'ah, so make haste and hurry to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and leave aside your sales. leave aside your business, your trade. So this time is a time for us to put things aside when business matters and on a bigger sense for dunya, to put it aside for a few minutes to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I remind myself and everyone to try to put your utmost effort into putting ikhlas into this little bit of time we have together. And also I request all the brothers and everyone, young brothers and elder, please make sure to keep your phones silent, off, and away. Because to play with anything, to make yourself busy with anything during Salat al-Jum'ah will take away from the barakah of your Jum'ah. Prophet said, and even if you roll around some stones, you touch some stones on the floor while you're in the Jum'ah, it is as if you made laghu, and you made like an idle talk inside of your Salah. So this Jum'ah has a type of respect that is due to it, inshallah. So we've asked Allah to give us tawfiq to give the due respect to the Yawm al-Jum'ah and the Salat al-Jum'ah. The topic for today is coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through excellence in our work. And so we strive through the advice and through the admonishment and the wisdom that's given in the Quran to do excellence. The first verse that I recited, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Yunus, لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا الْحُسْنَى وَزِيَادَةً, that for those who persevere in doing good. And doing good is not a proper translation. لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا الْحُسْنَى وَزِيَادَةً, for those who seek to do the best actually, not just good. أحسنوا, and those who want to put ihsan, those who want to be the best. So for those who strive and persevere in doing the best, the ultimate good is in store for them. لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا الْحُسْنَى, the best, وَزِيَادَةً, and more on top of that. And what could be the best and more on top of that? Of course, is Jannah. So for those who strive in excellence, the reward for them is the most excellent thing and even more than that. وَلَا يَرْهَقُ وُجُوهَهُمْ قَتْرٌ وَلَا ذِلَّةٌ, and no darkness and no disgrace will overshadow their faces on the day of Qiyamah. Okay, أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْجَنَّةِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ, these people will be the dwellers of the Jannah and they will be therein forever. So this is one example of the reward and the status that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described and has dedicated towards those who persevere in excellence and being the best in whatever they do. It does not mention what kind of work, it's just mentioning the characteristic of the work you do. The characteristic of your work is ihsan. You can be cleaning the masjid and you can do ihsan. You make sure to pick up every piece of dirt or every grain of sand or whatever you find in the masjid, get everyone. This is ihsan. If you put 75% or 90%, this is not ihsan. Ihsan is putting 100% and going beyond that. This is to be the best. The other verse that I recited from Surah Tabarak, common surah that many of us know, Tabarak alladhi biyadihi al-mulk wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. And praise and blessed be the name of the one whose hands is the power, the kingdom, everything is in his hands. وهو على كل شيء قدير. He is capable of all things. الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. The one who created death and life. الذي خلق الموت والحياة. He created death and he created life. ليبلوكم, to test you. أيكم أحسن عملا. Which one amongst you, or which ones amongst you will do ihsan in his actions and his deeds? And you may think, and it's an interesting thought to have, that if we lived forever, would there be any motivation to do excellence? Would there be any motivation to do anything? If you can live forever, then you can do everything tomorrow, because there's always a tomorrow. But if there is an end, and there is a defined period of time, so then there is a purpose and there is a reason for urgency. Because you have the beginning, which is already done, the life. We were all born sometime in the past. So now the only thing left is the death. And the clock is counting down. So this urgency of limited time is a motivation towards doing ihsan. So we put quality in our actions so that it will have value, inshallah, in the dunya and the akhirah. This is the intention. So these are the lessons and the wisdoms from the Quran. Now, as for the Sunnah, what the Prophet Muhammad has said, very short but meaningful hadith, which is easy to remember. Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ إِذَا عَمَلَ أَحَدُكُمْ عَمَلًا أَن يُتْقِنَهُ. That if any of you, Allah loves that if any of you do a deed, that He does it with itqan. This itqan also means a kind of perfection. You do it with perfection. Allah loves when you do something with perfection. So this goes hand in hand with the ihsan. These things are complementary. So you see that Allah loves it if you do something with itqan. And the purpose of life and death is to test us, to see if we will do ihsan. And the reward in the akhirah is the best of rewards for those who do ihsan. So the standard quality for whatever we do should not have to be asked. It's already known that our standard in Islam should be ihsan. That should be the minimum that we strive for. We should not be satisfied for less than that, because there is no high rank for something less than ihsan. So we should strive that our minimum is ihsan in whatever we do. Now there is an example from the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which comes in the story of the Battle of Khandaq, where you see the kind of ihsan the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to put in his own work. He used to put in this work, not just preaching it, but also practicing it, so we could see it in his actions and understand what that means. So during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a battle called Khandaq. This means the trench. So there was a time when they were in Medina, the period where the Muslims had moved to Medina, and the mushrikeen, those from Makkah and around the areas, those enemies of Islam, wanted to attack Medina. So they needed a strategy for defense for this small city. And so one Muslim who was from Persia, Salman al-Farisi, he said that to the Prophet ﷺ, in our place where we have this situation, we dig a trench around the city. So I suggest to you that we do that for defense of the city. So the Prophet ﷺ, he accepted that, and that was something that had never been done before amongst the Arabs. So they took this suggestion and they began digging a trench. Now, if you know the kind of trench that they need, of course, it should be a few meters deep and a few meters wide. So this is huge work. And they're not importing labor from anywhere else. Whoever's in the city has to come and dig. So amongst those is the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He's in the hole with the Sahaba and he's digging with everyone else, getting the dirt on his hand just like everyone else. So it is explained in the story that the companions, at the time while they were digging this trench, people were hungry, and the Prophet Muhammad, he himself had a stone tied on his stomach, to put back the pains of the hunger. So they were not working in easy conditions. They were working in difficult conditions. But this is one. But on top of that, on top of the hunger and the hard labor, they came to a moment where there was a hard, very, very hard stone that no one could break, that needed to be moved. So while they were trying to break it, using whatever tools they had, they could not. So they informed the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ about this stone. And so he came and they asked him, can you help us break this stone? So he said, So he took the tool that they were using, either a hammer or an axe of some sort, and he said, Bismillah, and he hit the rock. And when he hit the rock the first time, 1/3 of the rock was broken. And then he said, Allahu Akbar, I was given the keys of Damascus. I swear by Allah that I see the red manners of Damascus now. So he struck this stone with force, and it cracked 1/3, and he saw the future of Damascus being part of the Muslim Ummah. At that time there was only Medina, not even Makkah was part of the Muslim land. But he saw at that time Damascus by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he struck the stone again, and he said, Allahu Akbar. And he said, I was given the keys of Persia. I swear by Allah that I see the city of Madian and the white manors, the castles mean. And then he said, Bismillah, and he hit the rock again the 3rd time. And the remaining part of the rock was broken into pieces. And then he said, Allahu Akbar, I have been given the keys of Yemen. And I swear by Allah, I see the gates of Sana'a now. And so in this moment of difficulty, when the Sahaba were all putting their utmost effort, the Prophet ﷺ came and he put that much effort and more. Of course, he had the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he put that push, that effort, and he broke the stone that no one else could break. And subhanAllah, Allah showed him things. Allah showed him the future of opening 3 different far distant lands. And this is a principle that or a story that I believe we can take a lesson from. Excuse me. This is a story I believe we can take a lesson from, which is when we are in a situation of working hard, usually it's that moment where it seems almost impossible. When you push through that moment, that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unlocks for you amazing things. It's pushing through those difficult moments. And this can only happen through excellence and through trying to do ihsan in your work. You can think about the opposite scenario. If someone is not focused on ihsan, they say, okay, it's too difficult, just leave it. Just quit and give up. A lot of people, if something is difficult comes in front of them, try 1 or 2 times, you cannot find a solution, just give up. This is the kind of characteristic we should not have. If we cannot solve the problem with one strategy, we find another strategy, or we ask help, or we find a new tool, find another way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made many ways to do things. Giving up should not be one of our characteristics. Of course, there are some times when something is just not worth the effort. But when it's worth it, then we must find a way. As they say, where there's a will, there's a way. So we should take from the Quran and Sunnah and find the will that will motivate us to find the way when we're pursuing something that is worthwhile. One example, now this last example, from a time closer to ours, in the year 1453. This was the time of Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih. So Muhammad al-Fatih was from the Muslim Ottoman Empire. And at his time, the city of Constantinople was not yet within the Muslim Empire. But it was known by another hadith that this Constantinople will come to be inside of the Muslim Empire. So he had planned for this, and he had strategized and thought about it. But the thing about the city of Constantinople is that it had incredible defense. It was a city that many people said there's no way to get inside. And there's some statistics about it. The city had 2 walls. So there was an inner wall and an outer wall. So they had 2 layers of walls protecting the city to keep anyone out. The inner wall was 5 meters thick and 12 meters high. And the outer wall was 2 meters thick and 8.5 meters high. So you have 2 huge walls, okay? And so even if you have cannons for one wall, they have another wall to prevent you from coming inside. Now on top of that, they had a waterway to enter the city. But they had blocked this waterway with a very huge chain. So this chain blocked any ships from coming near to the city. Because whenever it's a narrow area that comes to the entrance of the city, they pull the chain and make it tight, so any ship, it will just bounce back, or maybe it will cut the ship, so the ship cannot enter the waters even of the city. So you cannot come by sea, you cannot come by land, and there's nothing, and there's no way to fly. So how to enter this city? So Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih, he thought about a way to overcome this. So he took some engineers, the best that he could find. Amongst them were some Muslim and some non-Muslim. And he commanded them to construct a new type of cannon that would be in 2 pieces. It would be longer than any that were commonly used, but it would be broken into 2 pieces, or it would be crafted into 2 pieces so that they could more easily carry it over the mountains and over the hills into the positions that they needed to shoot at these 2 layers of walls. And subhanAllah, once they took these cannons, they say that despite the numbers or despite the strength of the walls, there was a surprise in store for the Byzantines, because even though they were confident in victory, they also were expecting reinforcements to come from Italy. So the Sultan Muhammad offered the defenders the option to surrender and remain in possession of their property, lives, and families in peace. But the attack. And despite the best effort of the Ottoman soldiers, the bombardment of the world's biggest cannons, the city still lasted for weeks. And then after 10 days, Sultan Muhammad ordered the navy to be carried over land. So they took the ships and carried them by land around the area where the chain was. Deconstructed the ships and carried them. Okay? They deconstructed the ships and carried them over land to bypass the chain. And then overnight, 72 ships were carried over land and put into the waters of Constantinople. Okay? And then after that, they bombarded the city again with these cannons from close distance, and they entered. So this is the fortitude and the motivation that if you cannot go by this way or that way, you make a way. And this is a kind of motivation that we can apply even if we're doing a desk job or an office job. It's not to say that you have to be a military general in order to do great things. But you have to have a kind of indomitable spirit, a kind of burning fire that lets you push forward through any kind of circumstances and know that I must make this happen. Especially if you're doing something khair, something good, something that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not just to let it go on an easy situation. Islam did not grow and expand around the world over people taking it easy and going the easy way every time. Hard work had to be done. Hard work had to be done. And in today's age that we live in, we have plenty of challenges to face. And they will not get solved unless hard work is done. Unless great ideas are found. Unless great men and women stand up and put in the effort that's needed, provide the resources that are needed. It can be done. We have everything that we need. Every kind of talent and resource that is needed for the Muslim Ummah is already here. It's just a matter of the motivation and the effort. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us that spirit of ihsan and itqan and bless us and make us amongst those that are the muhsineen. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear respected brothers and elders, in the first part of the khutbah I shared with you some verses of the Quran that talk about the ihsan and itqan and the importance of doing the best and pursuing excellence in whatever we do. And one of the hadiths mentioned in Allah yuhibbu idha amala ahadukum amalan an yutqinah, that Allah loves that if any of you do a deed, then He loves if you do it in an excellent manner. And just to add on to that, there's another ayah in the Quran as well as Isra, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إن أحسنتم أحسنتم لأنفسكم وإن أسأتم فلها. That if you do ihsan for your own good. Yani, إن أحسنتم أحسنتم لأنفسكم. And the good of your ihsan will go back to you. When أسأتم فلها. And if you do the opposite of that, the harm will go back to you. So if we do ihsan, Allah will send the good to us. If we don't do ihsan, we only hurt ourselves. We cannot hurt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot decrease from the jalala and from the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah does not need anything from us. He does not have to ask from us. So we are only wasting our opportunities by not doing ihsan. We're not doing anything to harm Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. So in conclusion, I would like to encourage myself and everyone else to take the principles of this ihsan and itqan and apply it to whatever you are doing. I know I'm repeating this, but from personal experience, when you strive to go the extra mile, as we say, and do, for example, something that has never been done, I can say from experience that you will reach a point where there will be no way for you to find resources for help except to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, you want to build something to help the ummah, and you want to do something that's never been done before. You will go through stages where you will do what has been done before. You will read what has been written. You will apply that. You will understand that. And then you will take the next step, and then you will reach a point where you want to do something that has never been done. And there's no one you can ask for help because no one has ever done this before. At that point, you will find yourself able to come close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, I'm in the unknown. And you are the Lord of the unknown. So please help me. Ya Allah, I'm going somewhere that I don't know where anything that is in this place. So please help me. And the Sahaba, when they went to China, or they went to some faraway place, they didn't speak the language, they weren't familiar with the food or the culture or the weather, but they went. Who do you think they were asking for help? They were asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They could not even ask each other, even though all of them were Sahaba. No one could tell amongst them what is far to the north or to the east or to the west or to the south. Only Allah knows. But they believed that they had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with them, so they went. And they went with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So pushing to go beyond where anyone else has gone, and to push these limits, will put us in a great situation where you will have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will feel closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you're at that precipice where there's no one else. You're at that level where there's no one else. And you don't know if you can go further. You don't know if you can carry the ship over the mountain. But you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, help me to carry this ship over the mountain. And help me to make a tool that is so powerful that no one has ever made it before. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts, you will do something that will be noteworthy for the whole world. This Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih, until today, he is respected even in Europe. They keep his cannons in the museums in London, in England, to tell his story. Because this man did something that no other man did before. Despite how much they may not like Islam or whatever, they're keeping that in the museum because he made history. And that's what we can do. That can be our culture, to make history if we accept and if we implement ihsan as our culture. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who are the muhsineen. Allahumma ja'alna min al-muhsineen, waj'alna min al-muhkinin, waj'alna min alladhina yastami'una al-qawla wa yattabi'una ahsanah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا. ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا. ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به. واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يزدكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. وأقم الصلاة.